made it to Thursday. All right. Hello. Welcome to the Thursday afternoon podcast with me. Um, you can find me on Instagram under 12 Brown, WELVEBROWN. You can also find me on Facebook under Ronan Brown, RONINBROWN. And then I'm on YouTube under Brushing Teeth with Robert or the Diametrically Agreeing podcast. Here, I feel like I should write that out like with a big Sharpie and show it to the screen because it's a very complicated title. Hello. Hi. You can also, by the way, call in 512-952-9489. I generally have, no, stop, no. I generally have it set up to where to where you can call in. And I put that on my Instagram because the least people watch on my Instagram than watch on anywhere else, at least from what I've been able to tell so far. I could be wrong, but who knows? All right. So, welcome to the Thursday podcast. I'm glad we made it. I'm glad we made it here. And I'm glad that we are all alive and breathing and able to eat and drink. And those of us that are not probably don't care. So, welcome to my podcast on Thursday. And let's get into it. I was trying to figure out what I was going to make this podcast about. And so far, I've been going by the seat of my pants, which has been nice, but it's been a little obtuse. And it's also been very disorganized. And I want to organize it a little bit better. I made notes. I have notes. And I have a book. And I have a book. I think everybody knows that when I have notes and I have a book, you probably already know what I'm going to do. All right. Um, so let's talk about, first of all, what has happened over the last 24 hours, because I'd like to start there. These are the things that have happened over the last 24 hours. Not really much. Um, Bridget is in the other room. She is still sick. And it's like it got better last night. And then today it got worse. So we're trying to figure out what's going on. She's got a bad cough and she started running a little bit of a temperature. So I'm taking care of her there. Also, this was kind of fun. Of course, I make it no secret. I go to AA meetings. I am in the program. There are two meetings that generally happen during the day. There's one at noon and one at 7. And since I am off this week, I have been going to the noon one fairly consistently. Well, this was the cool thing that happened. I really like the microphone in this position, by the way. I'm a humongous fan of this. I feel like it should be a little bit closer, though. I think that fits a little bit better. It doesn't cast a shadow. I like this a lot. Um, I guess this is how they must do it on podcasts without having a shadow in their face or having like what looks like a big microphone dick sticking out of their mouth. Um, so I showed up at the noon meeting today. We're sitting around the noon meeting. It's about 4 or 5 minutes after noon, and usually they're pretty right on time. Normally, whoever's chairing the meeting, which is whoever's heading the meeting, they started pretty much on time. And today there was nobody to chair the meeting, which was awesome. So I stepped up and did it, and it was the very first meeting I've ever chaired, and I really enjoyed it. Um, Chairing a meeting is it's pretty easy. They pretty much have it laid out in this folder. I mean, you pretty much just read through it. It's pretty much formatted fairly easily. Um, I really enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed doing it. It was actually a lot of fun, and I liked it. And I think I kept it very upbeat. By the way, I should be able to check this out. I So right around the corner from the meeting, I noticed that there was a place that looked open but closed. How does that make sense? It's right on the corner of Jefferson and Sylvan in Bishop Arts. By the way, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. Um, right on the corner of Jefferson and Sylvan, there's this corner. There's a corner retail. What do you call it? Just retail space. Well, recently somebody had put up frosted glass, and just block letters on the door. And I want to say it says Telis or Telis or something like that. And I was pretty curious. So, of course, I did what anybody who should not do that does, which is I popped open the little mail slot and I looked in the mail slot, and it's an art gallery. And so I knocked on the door, and the owner opened, came out, let me in, and I got to look around the art gallery. And I'll tell you this, if you're in the neighborhood, stop by, knock on the door. He has great art up on the walls. I met him and his partner both. And gorgeous art from all over the world, everywhere from a guy who lives in a guy from Iran, Chicago, even local artists from Dallas and Austin. And I highly recommend you go by. For now, you have to knock on the door, which I'm gonna be honest with you, for the neighborhood it's in, it's understandable. That area is still slowly coming up, and you have a lot of locally controlled businesses, if you know what I mean. So he still has a kind of knock on the door policy where you knock on the door and then he lets you in. And it was awesome. It was really awesome. I had a great time. Looked around the art. They had really cool, even what you call actual display art, which were these costumes that looked like Lady Gaga would wear, which were actually pretty cool. So go by there. And then right next door, I've noticed just opened up was a photography studio, and it looks a little bit higher end also. So it looks like the neighborhood might be doing something. So hold on, I gotta reset a couple things. Again, why I need a partner. Um, I There we go. All right, very good. All right, so the neighborhood's kind of coming up, and that was also neat to kind of discover a new business in the area that's opening up. You know, that is kind of a really neat thing. So, let us get started on the subject. I think that's all. I think that's really all that's happened within the last 24 hours. I don't think I have anything really big to kind of talk about. Been kind of a little bit of a boring time. Besides me doing the podcast every day and besides me checking in with y'all, there really has not been much that has happened. Um, We're telling you. Okay, all right. Just checking my check. By the way, you can find me on Instagram under 12 Brown. That's TWELVEBROWN. You can find me under Facebook under Ronan Brown, and you can find me on YouTube under Brushing Teeth with Robert. So feel free to tune in, call in, video in. I'm trying to keep each day. We've had 4 people call in out of the 5 days, trying to keep it unique every day. So I'm trying not to keep the same people who calling in or trying to talk. Or I want to try to keep it varied for a little while. Oh yeah, this happened. So yesterday's podcast went out great over Instagram, went out great over Facebook. On YouTube, no sound. No sound. So an entire 35, 40 minutes of no sound. I'm keeping it up there regardless. I don't know why. But backstory, this is what happened. My dog, who is extremely smart, got tangled up in my wires at one point, and this was after the podcast was off and all that. But I had everything still plugged in and decided to rip everything out and tear everything apart. And so I had to go through and figure out my settings again. Listen, I don't do production. Even me figuring out the mixer was completely by chance. I remember when Upshaw was around, he kind of is the one who kind of talked me through it. And he didn't even really talk me through it. I even remember the conversations. We had like 3 conversations in one night where he would just go, I don't know, try it out. And this is the thing that sucked. The dude knew. He knew what I needed to do in order to get it done, but he wouldn't tell me. He'd be like, you go, I don't know. Did you try it? It might work. Who knows? Like, dude, just fucking tell me the answer. But it was awesome because then I learned it myself and I figured out how to do this myself and how to get this all set up to where it records properly. So that was really cool. And of course, what I do, I forgot a drink. So hold on one second. I'm going to go fix myself a drink real quick before I get into the main subject. So why do I always forget to get a drink? Okay, I'm coming. I'm coming. Okay. All right. So, by the way, I would love to be able to rep the coffee place that is doing this coffee right here. By the way, it's fantastic. I would love to rep that company right now. It is a friend of mine's company, and I am really glad that he gives me this cold brew. It's actually some of the best cold brew. His name is Marco. It's phenomenal, and I highly suggest it. It's very, very, very delicious. Um, so I have my drink finally, and I have my notes, and so we are going to talk about conspiracy theories. I Two of these are two of my favorite conspiracy theories. And people who know me probably already know what theories they are, but I'm going to go over them anyways because I think they tie into the third. And the third thing is something that I think we all need to talk about. And I think as a populace that we don't talk enough about. So we'll get to that farther down the line as I go through these. All right. But I have to do this because those glasses are not meant for reading. They are meant for me to see far away and to look intelligent. Those two things, period. Reading, they don't help me whatsoever. They hinder everything. So I don't look as intelligent, but I definitely look like somebody who believes in conspiracy theories. So that always helps. Let's go ahead and adjust you just a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. Okay. All right. So 3 conspiracy theories. 2 I believe in pretty highly. And the third one is kind of a new one that I heard, but I like it, and I think they all tie in together. All right. So the first conspiracy theory, by the way, let's go and reiterate. You can find me on Instagram under 12 Brown. That's TWELVEBROWN. You can find me under Facebook under Ronin Brown, RONIN BROWN, and on YouTube under Brushing Teeth with Robert. All good places. You can all live chat and talk to me while I'm doing this if you'd like. And you can feel free to call in 512-952-9489. And I'm hoping somebody calls in that I haven't heard from yet. That'd be fantastic. It would be absolutely great. And it would show that no single person is trying to be an attention whore. That'd be great. All right. So besides me, of course. So let's talk about our first conspiracy. So my first conspiracy is called it's from a book actually, and it's something I actually knew about, I believe, long before the book was written. But we're going to kind of stick to the book. All right. The book is called Weird Scenes Inside Laurel Canyon. Now, Laurel Canyon is in California. Laurel Canyon is a area of California that, of course, sits in a canyon. Duh. And near Laurel Canyon is an Air Force base. That Air Force base is called Lookout Mountain Air Force Station. It's a little bit of a secret station, and I don't know if the station still exists today. So that is something I'm unprepared to answer because I don't know if it's still a thing. But I do know this, that Laurel Canyon used to be real big with celebrities, and it's been big with celebrities ever since the 60s. Now, I'm going to state what the conspiracy theory is as a whole, and then we will run through it. All right. The conspiracy theory is this, that the counterculture revolution in the 60s, in the late 50s to, of course, early 70s was completely manufactured by the CIA and was a PSYOP. Okay. That PSYOP was engineered at Lookout Mountain Air Force Station and at a nearby naval base. All right. Now, so that would mean that the whole hippie culture, whether it be Timothy Leary, Allen Ginsberg, or to the rock bands of the time, everybody from Frank Zappa to Jimi Hendrix to, Mamas, Papas, everything, was all a manufactured psyop to distract us and to balkanize us, basically. And in case you don't know what balkanization is the theory or the psyop in which you have one populace who should have one enemy, and then through media and propaganda, They make this one entity believe there are two entities that are at war with each other, so they ignore what the big entity does. For instance, if you had one populace who believes that the upper class holds all the wealth, okay, and the upper class, of course, is made of celebrity, media, and government, they make you believe that there are two groups, hence, let's say, Democrat and Republican, that actually should be at war with each other rather than paying attention to who's fucking them. All right. So that is the theory of balkanization. Now, the that is the PSYOP. The PSYOP is the belief that the counterculture was designed in order for the U.S. populace to be in opposition to each other rather than paying attention to how the government was fucking them through PSYOP means, through war, through economic and judicial disparities, things like that. All right. So there we go. This is from Weird Scenes Inside the inside Laurel Canyon. Now, we're going to start off with one of the big facts of Laurel Canyon, which is this. The Vietnam War started by what is known as the Gulf of Tonkin incident. The Gulf of Tonkin incident is where there are naval ships, U.S. naval ships, off of the coast of Vietnam, and they call in that they are being fired upon. Now, that is what starts the Vietnam War ultimately. Now, I can't even believe I don't have notes on this part, but I can't even believe I'm about to pull this out of my memory. Now, before we get involved with Vietnam, all right, who is involved in Vietnam is basically the French and the Australians. All right, they are the big people who are involved in Vietnam. And they are getting their asses handed to them, and they are asking for help from the U.S. government. Now, the U.S. government is extremely hesitant to get involved because, as you have to understand, at the point at which Vietnam happens, we have already been through World War I, World War II, and we have just recently been through what is known as the Korean conflict. Okay, a lot of people forget about that. A lot of people forget that we were actually just literally. Oh, I see a net, and I got you. Haha. We actually were just in an Asian war directly before Vietnam. We were in the Korean conflict, which is basically what splits Korea into North and South Korea, causes the zone there that we have today between North and South Korea. And that all has to do with what's known as the domino theory. The domino theory is that communism has invaded Asian countries and will slowly cause them to fall and join the China Republic. All right. Which we come to find out, first of all, is untrue. In fact, a lot of these countries that did go communist were actually in diametric opposition to China. All right. And for instance, to this day, North Korea still does not get along with China. Okay. They are not friendly. They are not friendly at all. And in fact, at the time that Vietnam is going into almost a communist regime, they are still not entirely supported by the Chinese government, nor does the Chinese government entirely like what's going on there. Chinese government at this point is pretty isolationist, as are we, because we have, again, been through World War I, World War II, and most recently the Korean conflict leading up to Vietnam. At this point, the Australian, the French are basically getting their asses handed to them in Vietnam, and they're asking anybody to come in and help. And everybody's pretty hesitant to help. Nobody's helping. England isn't stepping up. None of the people you would think who are generally considered an ally are stepping up at all. Germans definitely are not getting involved because Germans are still going through reconstruction from World War II. And we're really hesitant to get involved. But now we do have U.S. naval ships positioned off of the Gulf of Tonkin, and we're pretty much just sitting there and we are not doing anything. We're pretty much just observing. And I believe, if I'm correct, we are supplying arms, but we really don't have anybody on land except for maybe a few special forces or something like that. We are not wholly invested in the Vietnam War at this point. All right. Now, the Gulf of Tonkin incident happens. All right. And the way this happens is I'll give you the official response as of that time to start. Okay. Again, I'm on Instagram Live at 12 Brown. That's TWELVEBRWN. I'm on Facebook at Ronin Brown. That's RONINBROWN. And I'm on Brushing Teeth with Robert on YouTube. Now, the the official report of record is that we get fired on as our ships are in the Gulf of Tonkin. That is what leads us into becoming into our initial investment in the Vietnam War. All right. Now, here is the funny fact that a lot of people don't know. The commander of that fleet, his name is Stephen Morrison. All right. He is the commander of the naval fleet that calls in being fired upon in the Gulf of Tonkin. All right. Stephen Morrison is the father of the let's do great, Jim Morrison of the Doors. He is the commander of that naval fleet out of the naval base near Laurel Canyon, by the way. That is his station. His home station is near Laurel Canyon. Laurel Canyon is actually where Jim Morrison starts the Doors and is actually near Lookout Mountain Air Force Base, is where Jim Morrison is raised. All right. So, I totally forgot about this. See, I'm writing things down as I remember them. So, I want you to keep that in mind because that comes into play in a minute. All right. So, Jim Morrison's father is the naval commander of the fleet that starts us in Vietnam with the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Now, keep this in mind. As things have become declassified, we have come to learn that the Gulf of Tonkin incident is completely, almost wholly made up. We are looking for a reason to get involved in Vietnam. Okay. Just like World War II, the sinking of Lusitania is what gets us involved there. We use the Gulf of Tonkin incident to get involved in Vietnam. The Gulf of Tonkin incident is actually a celebration. Nobody was being fired upon. It is actually fireworks that was happening in the village for a celebration, I believe, of somebody's nuptials. I believe that somebody in the village was getting married, so they were firing off fireworks nowhere near the ships, but they used those fireworks as a precursor to call in an attack, thus getting us involved. Because, of course, as you know, nobody in the U.S. really even give a crap about Vietnam. People probably couldn't even find Vietnam on a map. Nobody could have cared less. Nobody even knew about Vietnam. And of course, you need that catalyst to get people behind it. Just like a lot of people do not realize that in World War II, we were very isolationist and we were not going to be involved in any way, shape, or form. We weren't even going to be involved in what was happening over in Japan until Pearl Harbor happened. We had zero issue on getting involved. Same thing with getting involved in World War II over in the European front. De Gaulle and Austria and them had already kind of gotten, themselves knee deep into the situation. And we had kind of decided to step out until the Lusitania gets sunk. When Lusitania gets sunk, that is when we decide to get involved. Same thing with the Gulf of Tonkin incident. We do not get involved in Vietnam until the Gulf of Tonkin happens. Come to find out, they're being declassified just maybe 10, 20 years ago. I think it was like 15 years ago that the Gulf of Tonkin incident was completely false. Okay. It was a celebration of fireworks. Now, let's go back to the major players. All right. So Stephen Morrison, who is Jim Morrison's father, is the naval commander of that fleet and is there at the Gulf of Tonkin incident. In fact, he is the one who calls in the Gulf of Tonkin incident for us to get involved in Vietnam. He is stationed right outside of Laurel Canyon, which is at the Lookout Mountain Air Force Station. Now, keep this in mind, okay? At this station, Jim Morrison's father is stationed there. Frank Zappa's father is stationed there. Jimi Hendrix's father is stationed there. David Crosby of Crosby, Stills, and Nash, his father is stationed there. Mama Cass from the Mama and Papas, her father is stationed there. In fact, they all, as children, used to play with each other. They had play dates at the nursery there at that station. So they all knew each other as children. All right. Now here's where we get deep. Laurel Canyon Lookout Mountain Air Force Station is actually where we start the CIA program, which is called MK Ultra. MK Ultra is where we start studying the techniques that the Germans used in World War II for hypnosis and COINTELPRO. So it's basically hypnotizing people to do things against their will. All right, with all sorts of different means, whether it be hypnosis, LSD, marijuana, DMT, all sorts of different things are used in order to suppress the will and hypnotize people to do things. Keep that in mind because at this Lookout Mountain Air Force Station is where Timothy Leary, what they call the godfather of LSD, this is where he gets his first grant from Berkeley to study the effects of LSD on the mind. He is helping with the MK Ultra project at Lookout Mountain Air Force Station. Keep this in mind. This is all stuff to keep in mind. I'm not saying it's true. It's just a conspiracy theory that I believe in. All right. Now, these are the bands that come out of Laurel Canyon at this time. This is why I think the conspiracy theory that the counterculture was a psyop and why it was manufactured, I think is very valid. Because out of Laurel Canyon comes the Byrds, the Doors, Buffalo Springfield, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, Mamas and Papas, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Joni Mitchell. Of course, you get Jimi Hendrix. You get all of these people with their bands come out of this naval base and this Air Force base, move into Laurel Canyon. And this is thus the counterculture comes about. All these bands live in Laurel Canyon during the 60s. They all live right around the corner from each other, within blocks of each other. All right. Now, also, Laurel Canyon is also where Charles Manson gets his start and lives. Okay. Charles Manson, before he had the Manson family, and this is all true and declassified, by the way. This is not a conspiracy. This is all true, unclassified things. Charles Manson, before he has the Manson family, is employed by the CIA to find businessmen and politicians and take them to a whorehouse right outside of Laurel Canyon, where what? The government is running a program to dose these people without them knowing with small amounts of LSD to video them. At the time, I think it's like Super 8 millimeter, and to use it as blackmail evidence and also study the effects of LSD on unsuspecting and unwilling people. Boom. So you get all the major players of the counterculture, including who a lot of people say end of the counterculture, which is Charles Manson, the Manson family. You get all the major players all come out of Laurel Canyon. Now, here's the big part. Ooh, I gotta put this on the floor. I'm gonna put a ring on my coffee table. So keep this in mind. There's also a major player in the MK Ultra and COINTELPRO program. There's a very large major player that a lot of people don't mention, and he is also helping study the effect of LSD and programming and mass programming on people's minds. Along with Timothy Leary, by the way. Now, Timothy Leary does drop out of this program. Eventually, gets arrested by G. Gordon Liddy in a raid on his ranch and serves time. By the way, I have to tell this story. So Timothy Leary has his farm raided. Okay, at this point, Timothy Leary has dropped out of any kind of government or college funded program and kind of has this large swath of land in which he has hippies there all the time. Charles Manson is up there, Hell's Angels are up there, all these different players are up there all the time. Eric Clapton, the Birds, the Door, all these people, Frank Zappa, they're all up there, and they all. Now, I don't think Frank Zappa did drugs. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think he was a fairly sober individual, but he's very authoritarian from what I heard. But all these people go up to Timothy Leary's place and do LSD together. Now, of course, LSD becomes legal. The government raids Timothy Leary's farm, and G. Gordon Liddy, who, as we know from Watergate during the Nixon era, he is the one who heads up the raid and arrests Timothy Leary. This is the funny thing about the Timothy Leary situation. Timothy Leary gets arrested. Now, when he gets convicted and gets sent to federal prison, one of the things you give people is you give these people going in the system, you give them a test to see where they should be placed in prison, whether they are whether they're a danger to themselves, danger to other people, things like that. Well, the test they gave Timothy Leary, he was actually the one who developed this test as a psychiatrist at Berkeley. So he was able to take the test and put himself into the most minimum possible security prison. And literally within like the first few months, he's on guarding duty outside the walls, basically stands up, walks away, and escapes. That's how easy it was for Timothy Leary to get out of jail. Could be a conspiracy, could be manufactured. They could just let him get away just for the hell of it, but who knows, all right? But that brings me to this. Another psychiatrist who is doing experiments for COINTELPRO and MK Ultra at this Lookout Mountain Air Force Station is a gentleman by the name of Jolly West. Jolly West is an American psychiatrist who worked for his own private practice and eventually worked for the government and the CIA on programming techniques. Jolly West goes on to recruit Jim Henson in the creation of Sesame Street. If you look, Jolly West is responsible for the creation of Sesame Street and for educating young minds across the world in the ways of Sesame Street. I'm not saying Sesame Street's evil. I love Sesame Street to this day, but the person who created it was an evil son of a bitch, just so you know, and his name was Jolly West. Look all this up, please. If I am wrong, please say it and tell me. I would love to hear it, just so you know. All right, so now this brings me to my second favorite conspiracy. I want to prop up a book that a lot of people don't know about. It's one of my favorite books on alternative histories and on things that people don't know about. It is this book. It's by Disinformation Press, which I think is defunct now, quite possibly. But this is called Everything You Know Is Wrong. It's one of my favorite books. The guy who headed up the publishing company, I believe, so the editor of this, his name is Russ Kick. He was pretty famous in the alternative like press world. But I believe the guy who was behind Disinformation, his name was Kurt Metzger, if I'm correct, and I could be wrong, but he was responsible for not only a publishing house but also a media company called Disinformation, and they are now, I'm pretty sure they're defunct, but they even had a short-lived TV show that you can't even find anymore, and I have on DVD. And if you have this, if you know about Disinformation, please say something, leave a comment, because more people should know about this media company. They did some very revolutionary stuff, and they introduced me to a lot of people and artists like Joe Coleman. I wouldn't have known about Joe Coleman if it wasn't for Disinformation. I wouldn't know about a lot of things if it was not for them. God, who else? I wouldn't know about a lot of different comic books, and I wouldn't know about a lot of historians, including Howard Zinn. They introduced me to Howard Zinn, as a matter of fact. But this book is a series of articles. It's basically a series of articles by different authors, everybody from Paul Krasner, Naomi Klein, which I still love her to this day, Richard Metzger, that was his name, not Kurt Metzger, Richard Metzger, John Taylor Gatto, I believe Howard Zinn, Howard Bloom is in here, Greg Palast. It's filled with great authors. Now, my favorite article in this book is called this. It's called Witnesses to a Massacre, Other Participants in the Columbine Shooting. All right. Now, I'm going to read a little bit from it because I think it's deserved to know. Um, Now, it starts off with this. The mass shooting at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado still stands as the most bloody and most infamous school shooting in U.S. history. In the end, a dozen students, one teacher, and two gunmen lay dead. Even if another incident surpassed it with regard to body count, Columbine will remain seared into the public psyche as the archetypal school shooting. Despite its unique status, despite the controversies it triggered, provoking arguments about guns, Marilyn Manson, bullying, parental responsibility, and the subsequent incidents and near incidents it inspired, many unanswered questions still swirl around this event on April 20th, 1999. I got to start plugging that phone in. Um, so, one of the things about this article in particular is there is very little editorializing. Almost all of this article is witness accounts from the day of the shooting, and they are from witnesses. Now, I want you to keep this in mind when I read some of this. On the day Columbine happened was the same day that I'm going to get him, was the same day that we dropped more bombs in Bosnia than the heaviest day in Vietnam. So keep that in mind. That is what happened on April 20th, 1999. All right. And it's chopped up into all sorts of different sections. Okay, so for instance, the very first section is called "The Bomb Thrower in the White T-Shirt." Jane Apodaca, all right. This is a statement taken by Detective Brian Lynch. At the soccer field with a friend and heard what sounded like firecrackers. Saw three subjects near the school shooting. One threw bombs onto the roof of the school. Subjects shot shotguns towards him and his friends. He and his friends ran to a house and called 911. He saw a gunman ducked down with a shotgun in Weaver Park. Subjects were white males, two wearing black trench coats, black berets, black pants, black army boots, black t shirts, carrying shotguns. He has seen them at school before, but did not find them in the yearbook. He was shown. The third subject had light brown hair, wearing a white t shirt and jeans, throwing bombs onto the roof. Now, keep in mind, neither Eric nor Dylan were wearing jeans, so keep that in mind. Mike Kenny, a sophomore, was interviewed on May 1st of 1999 by Terry Kemmel. Kenny and his companions on the soccer field heard what they thought were firecrackers during the library. They observed a party in a black trench coat with black pants. Mike states that he was approximately 100 yards away. Mike reported that the guy had a Tech 9 in his hand. A person wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans was about 10 feet behind the guy in the trench coat, and they both appeared together. The guy in the trench coat shot at them, so they ran. When Kenny looked back, he saw an explosion and smoke on the roof in the area of the two subjects. Okay. Second one. Here's one. Jessica Gertz. She's a student. Gertz was in the cafeteria with friends. Jessica said someone yelled that there was a fight, and they all got up to look out the windows. Jessica said she saw two guys dressed in trench coats and a guy in a white t shirt, possibly with them, standing near the current stairs. After hearing shots, she ran out of the cafeteria, then out of the school. Jessica, she said she saw two tall, about 6 feet, adult males standing close to the cement stairs outside the cafeteria, which was the west side. She said they appeared to be very calm. She said they were dressed in black. She could not be for sure the exact clothing, but she did say it was all black. She also said another male in a white t shirt was standing close to the cement stairs and appeared to be very calm also. She told them that she thought it was strange that the three were standing so calmly when everyone else was panicking. The adult in the white shirt was also tall, thin, and estimated to be of 6 feet tall. Now, if you read about Dylan and Eric, they were not 6 feet tall. The second part is called the Acne shooter. Bijan Monty, scene walkthrough on May 1st. Bijan Monty stated that she wanted the agent's presence at the interview to know that she assumed the gunmen got their weapons from redacted house. because she knew through her friends that they had a lot of guns. She stated she had been to the redacted house one time, and she said she saw weapons mounted on the wall as a display. Now, keep this also in mind. This is not the scene at Eric or Dylan's parents' houses, okay? They did not have the guns displayed on walls in any way, shape, or form. And the claim is that these guns were not only given by the parents or basically were taken from the parents' house, but they were also given from a third subject who I believe it comes named later. Also, keep in mind that there's only been something like a minute and a half of the film from the Columbine shooting ever released, even to the parents. The parents still have not seen the entire video from the Columbine shooting. All right. Let's see. Lacey Smith, a student, May 4th, 1999, by detectives. Smith seems to be expecting that she'd be contacted by investigators. She immediately opened her yearbook and pointed out Redacted's picture. She said that his appearance has changed from that picture, that now he has long hair and his face is really broken out. Smith described Redacted as always dressing the same every day with a black trench coat, black baseball cap turned backwards. The hat had a circular logo on it, possibly the world, in white letters that said no shit. Smith, and this is all a separate gunman that is not prosecuted, that is not tried, and is still alive. This is one of my favorite, which is it's called The Suspect Outside the Science Room. There are several people who claim to have seen a suspect with spiky blonde hair, all right, who was an adult, okay? Jennifer Small, who's a student, she wrote this statement. I saw a senior standing outside the classroom. I knew he was a shooter. Then I saw an adult with blonde, short, spiky hair. I thought he was in his 30s. I thought he was a cop until he held up a sawed-off shotgun. Then he and the senior tried to break into the room where a shot teacher went. When they couldn't get in, they ran away shooting down the hall once or twice. She said that between 11:45 a.m. and noon, she looked in the hallway and saw Dylan in the hallway and another white male. She said that had he looked past the other person, he would have seen her easily. Miss Small was asked to describe Dylan, and she said he was wearing a black t-shirt with writing on it. She did not know what it said, and a black hat on backwards with writing on it, and that he had long curly hair. She said that the person with Dylan appeared to be older, had short blonde hair like a buzz cut, and was wearing a white t-shirt, tight fit with no pockets, and was carrying a tan-colored sawed-off shotgun. She said that they tried to break down the door where Mr. Sanders was, and when they couldn't break down the door, they threw a bomb and ran down the hall. This is a whole different suspect, of which there is actually a police sketch of the person. There is actually a police sketch of this person that is described by several different witnesses. There's also what is known as the camouflage pants suspect. Miss Small said that between 11:10 a.m. and 11:15, she saw a person who she thought was Redacted, someone who hung out with Dylan near the main doors, and it appears that he had just come in. She later identified this person as Redacted. She said that he was wearing a black trench coat, black shirt, black and white camouflage pants. He normally tucks his pants into his boots, but she didn't remember if they were tucked in or not. He was carrying a black colored duffel bag with one or two yellow stripes. It seems likely the student was carrying a duffel bag filled with explosives and weapons. After all, it is beyond belief that Harris and Klebold could have transported and planted 95 explosive devices at the school by themselves. This is all, by the way, police officers who are writing this. These are all FBI agents and police officers who are writing all of this. This is not. Oh, hi, Angie. Hi, how are you doing? Could you hear me this time, by the way? So this is all stuff written by police officers taking witness accounts. All right. There are huge swaths of chapters on other shooters, gunmen talking to accomplishment, shots and voices heard after 1 o'clock p.m., even after the police stormed the building. Um, there are accounts of people hearing um, people speaking German and Russian over the walkie talkies. Now, okay, good. You can hear me. Good. I'm glad. Now, keep that in mind. On the day Columbine happens, April 20th, 1999, we drop more bombs in Bosnia than we do in the entirety of the Vietnam War. Keep that in mind. All right. So please try to find this book. Everything You Know Is Wrong. I know you can still find it on Amazon, but I think it's kind of in limited production now. So it's hard to find. But it's an incredible article and it's very eye opening. Oh, sorry you're late. That's all right, Sean. I still see you. How are you doing? Um, just so you know, get this book. It is amazing. And read this article and read more about what happened during Columbine. It is it is shocking some of the witness accounts that you have not heard of. And I still find it shocking today that only like a minute and a half has ever been released to anybody. Why even to the parents? I mean, if you're a parent of any of the kids, if you're a victim, shouldn't you be allowed to see the entire video and what happened during the entire time? I still find that entire situation shocking because it's right. At the beginning of the article, it talks about the discussion it brought up in the human in the U.S. sphere of media about gun ownership, about parental responsibility, about the school system, about video games, about music. It brought up such a huge swath into the U.S. conversation that there are still to this day a ton of unanswered questions. And if you think about the range of school shootings that have happened from then to now, there are still unanswered questions in many of those school shootings. And you'll also notice that a lot of those school shootings happen during a time in which there is something we should be paying attention to. Just my opinion. So now let's talk about the third conspiracy. Now, the third conspiracy I learned about today. And I think that ties into everything I've talked about. Speaking of which, if you want to find me, I'm on Instagram under 12 Brown. That's TWELVEBROWN. I am on Facebook under Ronin Brown. That's RONINBROWN. And I am on YouTube under Brushing Teeth with Robert. So let's talk about number three. Number three I learned about today. And number three, I already kind of had an idea about. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of conspiracies I still like. And there are a lot of conspiracies. We can go into World Trade Center and all sorts of things like that. Okay. We can go into MK Ultra even deeper if we want. And I'm sure these are just some of my favorites. Okay. These two are just some of my favorites. I have a ton that I still love and do believe in to this day. All right. But let's talk about the thing I learned about today. And I kind of already knew this, but I never really put it all together. So as we know, a submarine called the Titan with some millionaires and billionaires went missing a few weeks ago. During that time, okay, I'm going to have to make this quick because my Facebook is about to go dead. During that time, there was all sorts of things that happened during that week to the submarine that we kept our eye on. First of all, the Titan, and let's run this down real quick because I want to end this and I want to make sure that doesn't phase out. The Titan, on Monday, we find out the Titan is missing. On Tuesday, we hear the infamous banging, okay, that we think might be the Titan and people inside the Titan banging. On Wednesday is when we start finding out that they are running out of air. And then on Thursday is when Thursday and Friday is when the wreckage is found and we realize what happened is it crushed in on itself. Now, we come to find out that before Monday even hits, on Sunday, the Navy already knows what happened to it. Before the media tells us, all of these things that happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we come to find out, and we have come to find out that Sunday before, the Navy already knows what has happened to the submarine. The Navy already knows that the submarine has crushed in on itself. No matter the spokesman that came on the TV telling you these updates, we already know now from the Navy that Sunday before we are led on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we have come to find out that on Sunday, the Navy already knew that the submarine that crushed in on itself had not survived, everybody was already dead. Let's talk about what happened on the week we were paying attention to the Titan. In the week we were paying attention to Titan, the J.P. Morgan and Jeffrey Epstein emails are released. Yet, that same very day, they are 47 million of those emails are accidentally deleted. In that week, the House starts impeachment process against Joe Biden. In that week, the Pentagon fat fingers and releases $6 billion of aid to the Ukrainian war. In that week, Hunter Biden gets probation for felony gun possession in which he throws a gun in a dumpster by a school. In that week, 3 whistleblowers for the Hunter Biden laptop go missing and are still missing to this day. In that week, John Durham has his congressional meeting on what we find out now. I want to preface this one real quick. No matter whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, or whether you're a liberal or Democrat, I don't really give a shit. I don't really care. But we do know now that it was a hoax. We do know now that from John Durham's testimony in Congress that it was made up. We do know this now. Okay? And yet, nobody's talking about it. Because why? What happened that week? The Titan went missing. So, to recap, on Monday, the Titan goes missing. On Tuesday, we hear the infamous banging. On Wednesday, we hear that they are running out of air. On Thursday and Friday, it is found. Now, keep in mind, the Navy already knows on Sunday that this submarine is done. It's gone. It's dead. It has crushed in on itself. Okay? So before any of this is released through this week that we're paying attention to it, the Navy already knows. And in that week, 47 million emails are deleted that are between J.P. Morgan and Jeffrey Epstein. The House starts and attempts impeachment process against Biden. The Pentagon releases $6 billion in aid to the Ukrainian war. Hunter Biden gets probation for felony gun possession and ditching a gun in a dumpster by a school. 3 whistleblowers go missing about the Biden laptop and are still missing to this day. And John Durham has his congressional meeting in which he admits that the Russian collusion between Donald Trump is a lie. Those are my conspiracy theories of the week. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you liked them. And I hope it gave you a little bit of insight into paying attention to the left hand because you don't know what the right hand is doing. Jazz hands. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when you think you have an enemy in a liberal, or you think you have an enemy in a conservative, you think you have an enemy in a Democrat, you think you have an enemy in a Republican. Keep in mind the term balkanization. Keep in mind the term media cycle. Keep these things in mind. All right. Who is really got your back and who really is the person you should be paying attention to? All right. Well, we are at a 55-minute mark. Wow, this is one of my longest ones, and I'm glad I did it. I'm glad you got to listen to me ramble about conspiracy theories, or as I like to call it, alternative history. I only have an enemy with language and math. Thank you, Sean. All right. Well, I love you all for being here. Thank you for joining me on Facebook at Ronan Brown. Thank you for joining me on Instagram at 12 Brown. That's TWELVEBROWN. And thank you for joining me here on Defund MSN. Damn right. Hashtag defund the mainstream media. So again, I do want to hawk this book. I have nothing, I have no say in it at all, but you really should. It's called Everything You Know Is Wrong. It's by Disinformation Press. It's a great book on alternative history and on what a lot of people call conspiracy theories and alternative politics. You really should get it. Actually, Disinformation Press does great things like the 50 things you don't know about American history, the 50 things you don't know about witchcraft. Just there, it was a great company. Again, I don't know if it's still around, but Richard Metzger, mwah, I always loved the stuff that he did, even though politically, I believe we were diametrically opposed to each other. I think he did great things back in the day. So, in the end, I always like to end like this. Go out there and be grateful. Be grateful you were able to breathe, grateful you were able to eat, be grateful you have a roof over your head, be grateful for each other and the conversations we're able to have with each other. Um, know this: I love you. Have love and patience for each other as you go through the day. Um, give the world a big hug, pat on the ass, and let it know that you appreciate another day above ground on it. All right. I love you very much. 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 And I'm glad you could be with me. So until tomorrow, when I do this again, and I think I'm going to make notes again because this worked out really well this time. It was a little organized this time. I kind of liked it. So thank you all very much for joining in. Thank you for saying hi on all the different medias, and know that I love you all. All right. Talk to you later. See you later. And I love you all. Ba-da-da-da-da.